This is Foundation to Equity, Building Wealth Through Real Estate. I'm your host, Dave Zuller, real estate broker, contractor, and investor, here to show you how to turn property into opportunity. If you've ever thought about buying a home, investing, or just want to understand how real estate really works, you're in the right place. Welcome to my first episode. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I just kept putting it off. But at some point, you have to get started. The goal of my podcast is simple. I want to help people understand how to actually build wealth through real estate. Not just buy a house, but use real estate as a tool. Because the truth is, this stuff isn't taught anywhere. Nobody teaches you how to create equity. Nobody teaches you how to leverage property. Nobody teaches you how to turn one deal into 2, into 5, into 10. And the people who do understand it, a lot of times they're not exactly rushing to share that information. I've been lucky enough to meet the right people along the way, people who are willing to show me how this actually works. And this podcast is my way of paying that forward. I'm not just here to talk about what I've done. I'm here to help you figure out how to do it. This podcast will be for you if you're thinking about buying your first home, or maybe you already own it, but you're starting to wonder, how do I actually build wealth from this? Or maybe you're just trying to understand how real estate really works without all the fluff. Whether you're starting from zero or you've already got a foot in the door, this will help you level up. So before we go any further, I want to give you a little background on me so you know who you're listening to. I didn't come from money, not even close. I was raised by a single mom, and if there's one thing she gave me, it was work ethic. No shortcuts, no excuses, just show up and get to work. I started my career in law enforcement and then moved into state government, where I worked as the director of Rhode Island's Crime Victim Compensation Program. It was meaningful work that I'm proud of. But one thing I learned pretty quickly, when you work for an elected official, you don't exactly have a lot of job security. So I got into real estate as a part-time agent just on the side to have a backup plan. But then something happened. I fell in love with it. And within a couple years, I made the jump and went all in. Part of the reason why I fell in love, and I've stayed in love with this business, is that you just never stop learning. Every deal, every client, every job site is so unique that there's always something new that pops up, something you haven't seen before. And once you figure out a creative solution, you just put that tool in your toolbox for the next time you see it or something like it. I'm the type of guy that can get bored if work becomes repetitive or mundane. Real estate has just never been that for me. I'm always meeting new people, having interesting conversations, helping buyers or sellers to put their plans into action. And I remember there was a moment where everything really clicked for me. I started looking at real estate differently, not just as transactions or commissions, but as something bigger. I realized this is how people build real wealth, not by working more hours, but by owning the right assets. That shift in mindset changed everything for me. Because once you see it that way, you can't just unsee it. Around that same time, I started buying distressed multifamily properties. That's where things got really interesting. Because when you buy properties that need work, you either learn how to fix them or you spend a lot of time and money paying someone else to do it. So I started building a crew, learning the process, pulling permits myself. Not because I planned to ever start a construction company, but because I had to. And over time, every client I worked with started calling me, "Hey Dave, do you know someone who can do this or do that?" And eventually that someone, it became me. That's how Karvia Construction was born. And to this day, the business has grown entirely through word of mouth. And that name, Karvia, it actually means a lot to me. It's a combination of my 3 daughters' names, Kayla, Ariana, and Olivia. Karvia. That name is on everything. Our investment company, our construction company, this wall behind me, and it's a constant reminder of why we hustle. This isn't just about money. It's about building something that lasts. I also want to mention to anyone out there thinking about or who may be interested in becoming a licensed real estate agent that I'm also a certified real estate instructor. Through the Westcott School of Real Estate, we provide a fast-track pre-licensing class that can get you ready to take the state and national portions of the exam in just 3 Fridays and 3 Saturdays. We actually have one of these fast-track classes beginning May 8th for anyone who's interested. You can register right online at westcottschool.com. My co-instructor for the class is Joy Riley, owner of Westcott Properties. Anyone who's been in the game for a while in Rhode Island will know, or at least has heard of Joy. She's a truly impressive investor, broker, and probably the best saleswoman I've ever met. I've been very lucky to have her as my mentor as I tried breaking into this business. Combined, we have over $1 billion in sales volume, and we bring that experience to the class to best prepare you for a future career in real estate, which has completely changed my life. Even for those of you who don't see yourself as an active agent, just by having the license, you can have a nice little side hustle going by referring people you already know to an agent. And by being licensed, you can then collect referral fees, generally around 20 to 25% of the gross commission. To put that in real numbers, if you refer someone to me to sell their house and I sell it for $500,000 and I charge them a 2.5% commission, the gross commission on that would be $12,500. So to be clear, just by sending someone you already know to me in this scenario, I would be able to pay you a referral fee of over $3,100 just for making an intro. And much like what you'll learn from my story, you just never know what else that might turn into down the road. For me, there were a lot of things I had to learn the hard way. One of the biggest lessons early on was realizing how easy it is to underestimate a deal. Whether it's renovation costs, timelines, or unexpected issues, things come up. And if you don't know what you're doing, those mistakes can get expensive real fast. I'll give you a quick story. The first investment property I purchased was over near Providence College. Historically a great area. It's very difficult to break into because there are some big players over there. This was a huge 3-family, all 1,500 square foot apartments, lots of parking, a huge unfinished 4th floor. And back then, I didn't know everything I know today. And to be honest, my risk tolerance looking back at it now was kind of nuts. I was so eager to get into the game, and I was watching MLS like a hawk, waiting for good opportunities. When this one hit the market and it was a good price, I put in a sight unseen offer when it was only listed for an hour. The listing agent took it immediately, and we arranged for me to get into all the units. From the photos, it was clear that 2 of the units were at least in decent shape, not super updated, but livable, and seemed to have good tenants. The 2nd floor apartment was occupied by a longtime prior owner's family member. Nothing had been touched in that apartment in decades, and it was filthy. None of this made me nervous enough about moving forward, so we closed on the building, knowing that job 1 was going to be to vacate that 2nd floor apartment and remodel. I was excited to get started, ready to learn all that I could through the process. And in my mind, having to remodel 1 unit would be a great intro without a huge financial burden because I still had rents coming in from the 1st and 3rd floor. Well, I quickly learned that having tenants around, but especially below the apartment you're working on that's full of old wiring and old plumbing, it's not always the easiest way to renovate. The kitchen was a strange layout, and it was clear it needed to come all the way down, come up with a better layout from scratch, knock out all the old built-in cabinets, Formica counters, and the rest of the apartment had these beautiful original fir floors that needed to be refinished anyway, so I wanted to get the kitchen down to bare wood also. Once we came up with a new layout, I started looking for contractors that would help with some of the work. I vastly underestimated the total cost and complications that would come from this project. I made the mistake of hiring one of the cheapest guys I could find, and after a few weeks of barely getting anything done, I had to fire him and get a better but more expensive person in there to help finish. Along the way, we discovered 6 layers of flooring to get down to that bare wood in the kitchen, and that in and of itself turned into a big project. Then it turns out that the water lines feeding the kitchen were this very old brass, which at that time I knew nothing about. Any of you who have worked with old brass have probably experienced something similar, but when you start messing with one section of these old brass lines, they become very brittle over time, and you almost always have unintended consequences. We tried to replace one section that was leaking, but as soon as we started cutting that section of pipe out, we opened up 2 more leaks. These leaks were in a portion of the pipe that ran beneath the now finally exposed hardwood floors. So after all that work to get down to bare wood, we had to take out some of that flooring anyway just to access the plumbing. At that time, I'm like, well, that sucks, but how hard could it be to replace a small section of hardwood? By the time we finished up with the leaks, I had a ceiling and a light fixture to replace in that apartment below, as well as some now new unhappy tenants. Then I got to go on the hunt for the new matching fir flooring. Who knew what a challenge that was going to be? But we're lucky in Providence that we have L Suite Lumber that stocks a lot of the older materials to match the age of the buildings in Providence. This info was not something I just knew or was taught about in school. I was lucky enough to have people to rely on to help me figure out what I was doing. While it did match, that flooring is not cheap, but you can buy by the board there rather than the bundle. Long story short, eventually what I hoped to be about a 3-week project turned into around 8 weeks and at least double what I thought it was going to cost me in the end. And now, today, looking back at it, knowing what I know today, I would have come up with a much better layout in the kitchen than I did at the time anyway, and I would know how to properly handle a project like that. That's why education matters, because the difference between a good deal and a bad one, a lot of times it comes down to what you don't know. And that actually leads me into something I see all the time. What people get wrong about real estate. Number one, people think they need 20% down to buy a home. Not true. Number two, people say that they're waiting for the perfect market. Newsflash, there is no perfect market. Number three, in my opinion, the most important, but also in many ways the most difficult, the realization that we can't do this alone. Whether it's a trusted advisor, mentor, agent, contractor, family member, someone, or ideally several people you can rely on for good advice. People that have been there and done that. Be willing to listen to that advice. Real estate is very much a relationship business. The bigger your network, the more successful you'll be. There's no shortcut to that. You have to put in the time and the effort to build that out. I'm doing this podcast now as a way to get you started thinking about the right things and the right deals. In my life as a real estate broker and contractor, I'm happy to help be one of those resources to get you going. And number four, people focus on price instead of value. It's not always just about what you pay. It's about what you're building over time. That's equity. That's where the wealth comes from. So moving forward, we're going to break all of this down. I'll be bringing on guests from every part of the process. Lenders, attorneys, inspectors, insurance agents, so you can really understand how everything works together. We'll talk about buying your first home, investing, or adding value to properties, and how to actually think long term. There are a lot of real estate podcasts out there, but most of them focus on what they've done. This one is about helping you do it, because I wouldn't be where I am today without people who were willing to share what they knew, and this is my way of doing the same. And when you're ready, whether you're thinking about buying, selling, investing, or you need work done to a property you already own, I want to be your go-to resource. You can reach out to me directly. My contact info will always be in the comments. Even if you just have questions, I'm always happy to help. If you got value from this episode, make sure you subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Dave Zuller, and this is Foundation to Equity, building wealth one property at a time. We'll see you on the next one.